What is up, Flockers? That is my fellow lockers and aspiring lockers. Have you heard the word on the street about the war that's going on? Okay, maybe it's not a war going on. It's a bit extreme, but there is a big battle between whether to microlock or whether to Sisterlock. So if you're wanting to know the differences, stick around because I'm going to tell you the major differences between what microlocks are and what Sisterlocks are to help you make a better informed decision about what you want to use to start your lock journey. So the first question that comes to mind with microlocks and Sisterlocks is the who. Who can start your locks? So with microlocks, anybody can start your locks. It can be a loctician. It can be yourself if you're a DIYer. It can be your cousin. It can be Kiki down the street or Ray Ray or whomever you want it to be. Now with Sisterlocks, the who is different. With Sisterlocks, you can only get your locks done by a certified Sisterloctician or by a trainee. There are some very strict rules when it comes to Sisterlocking. So one of the strict rules that I've heard of is that if you have not had your locks installed by someone who is certified and trained or a certified trainee of the Sisterlocks program, it cannot be considered Sisterlocks. Question number 2 that may come to mind is, what are the different starting methods? So with microlocks, there are a ton of different starter methods. With microlocks, you can use braids, as I did, to start your locks. You can use 2-strand twist. You can do interlocking. If you really want to be bold, you can do micro comb coils. I don't think I've ever seen anyone do comb coils for microlocks, but I'm sure there are people out there who have used that starter method to start their microlocks. Now with Sisterlocks, the starter method is one and done. There is no other way to do a Sisterlock installation except for interlocking. If you have used any other method besides interlocking to install Sisterlocks, then I'm sorry, but they are not considered Sisterlocks. Question number 3 that may come to mind is about price. Now with microlocks, prices obviously can vary from very low to very high, but generally, microlocks are priced at a much lower price than Sisterlocks. Now I have heard some locticians talk about how the amount of time that is taken to install microlocks is the same amount or a similar amount of time that it would take to install Sisterlocks, and the same amount of work or a similar amount of work. So for that reason, certain locticians may charge around the same price or the exact same price as a Sisterloctician might charge for their work. So it just depends on the loctician. You can definitely find a lot cheaper options when it comes to microlocks. And again, you can DIY and do it yourself if you want to save that coin and do it for free yourself. Now with Sisterlocks, it is a very expensive patented hairstyle. And so I don't think I've heard anyone talk about their Sisterlock installation being less than, and I don't want to throw any random numbers out there, but I've heard of it starting anywhere from $700-800 all the way up to upwards of $1,500-1,600, depending on the length of your hair density, and there's different factors that can change and affect the cost of what your installation is going to cost with Sisterlocks. Another question that may pop into mind when trying to decide between Sisterlocks and microlocks is the grid pattern. Now with microlocks, the grid pattern can be anything you want it to be, or it could be something very specific. With microlocks, you can have a very specific grid pattern that's followed, and it can be squares, or if you want a triangle pattern where your partings are triangles, or if you want diamonds, squares, brick lay pattern, you can do all of that with microlocks. There's nothing that says that a microlock has to be done this specific way. Now on the other hand, with Sisterlocks, there is a very specific grid that is followed, and the Sisterlock consultant or the trainee has been trained in this particular grid pattern that they use on all of their clients. Now depending on the size of your head and the shape of your head, this may alter a little bit, but overall the grid pattern is going to be the same from patient to they're not patients. The grid pattern is going to be the same from client to client. Another question that comes up is, well, what about the sizes? Can I get my sizes varied? With microlocks, your sizes can vary from very, very tiny to larger but smaller than traditional locks. So depending on whether you do it yourself or you have a loctician or a friend do them for you, they can choose the size that they want the lock to be, or you can choose the size that you want to start your locks. With Sisterlocks, on the other hand, they have a sizing chart that they go by, and depending on the density of your hair and all of that, they choose which size is most appropriate for your particular head. You may go into a salon thinking, oh, I want my locks to be this exact size, and then the Sisterlock consultant says, this is the size that you're going to get for the density of your hair because you have fine hair or because you have extremely coarse hair. There is a difference in the type of lock that they form or that they create on your head depending on your hair type and all of those things. So you want to keep that in mind when you're making the decision of whether you want to go with Sisterlocks or Microloc. The next question that may come about is about the tool that is used. Now with Microlocs, you are free to use whatever tool you desire. It can be an expensive tool that you find online. It can be a homemade tool. You can use something like a bobby pin, honestly, to do it. You can use a crochet needle to do your reties. You can use something like this that you get, like I said, off of Amazon or some other online store. They come in different sizes, different shapes, they have different hooks. Or you can be like me and opt for a homemade one that you just whittle down yourself and make for your interlocking tool. With Sisterlocks, there is a very specific Sisterlock tool that must be used in order to maintain your locks. Now, does everybody stick to using this tool throughout their entire interlock journey and their Sisterlock journey? Not necessarily. In the rules of Sisterlocks, from what I've heard, is that if your locks are maintained and retightened with another tool, then that can change whether or not you officially have Sisterlocks or not. If your locks are installed with a different tool, then it can possibly not be Sisterlocks. Or if someone maintains with a different tool, then it also possibly may not be Sisterlocks. I've heard a lot of people say that it shouldn't matter what tool is used for maintenance, because at the end of the day, if your locks were installed by a Sisterlock consultant or a trainee, you've got Sisterlocks no matter what tool is used on your head. But I do know that they do have a very specific tool that they use, and that's what goes along with the Sisterlock package. Something else that you may want to know about is the number of locks that is associated with Microlocs and Sisterlocks. Now with Microlocs, you can have whatever number locks on your head that you want. You can have 200 locks, you can have 500 locks, 800 locks. It all depends on what you want, how much hair you have on your head, whether it's thick or thin. All of those things play a factor into how many locks you end up with on your head, no matter whether you have Sisterlocks or Microlocs. But you can choose. With Sisterlocks, you can't go into a Sisterlock consultation and tell the Sisterlock consultant, I want 550 locks on my head, so I need you to do that. Now, depending on who your consultant is, they may be able to work with you and give you some type of ballpark of what they think the estimate will be for your head. But I don't think that any Sisterlock consultant is going to be like, oh, go ahead and tell me how many locks you want on your head and that's what I'm going to do. Because again, they have a specific sizing chart, they have a specific grid, and so all of that plays a factor into how many locks you will get on your head. And I've also heard that there is a specific minimum amount of locks that you have to have in order to qualify to be considered in this Sisterlock community. I don't remember if it's a minimum of 400, but I believe it's like a minimum of 400 that you have to have on your head. So if you're in the 200 or 300 group, then you would not be considered Sisterlock, along with the other reasons why you may not qualify for having Sisterlocks. Something else that differentiates Microlocs from Sisterlocks is the retightening rules. If you go to a loctician, regardless of whether it's for Microlocs or if it's a Sisterlock consultant, they're probably going to have you on a retie schedule. Again, nobody can force you to do something that you don't want to do, but I have heard that if you do not stick to your schedule or do things that your Sisterlock consultant tells you, they could possibly decide not to work with you as a client anymore. But I guess technically any loctician, if you're not following their advice and you're making their job more difficult because you're choosing to do things that they're advising you not to do, then they could drop you as a client if they chose to. But as far as rules for your retightening are concerned with Microlocs, you can go to anyone to be retightened. You can retie them yourself without any formal training. You can just watch videos on YouTube to learn how to retie your Microlocs. You can have your best friend or your sister or your cousin retighten your Microlocs. You can go to a loctician and have them retighten your Microlocs. It does not matter. With Sisterlocks, it must be a Sisterlock consultant or a trainee that retightens your locks. If you decide to go off to someone else, again, you run into that slippery slope of now that you've been to someone else who isn't a certified Sisterlock consultant or a Sisterlock technician or a trainee, do you still technically have Sisterlocks? I don't know all the rules. I haven't seen the contracts, obviously, because I have not gone through the training, so I don't know all of those things, but I have heard that it could make a difference. And with Sisterlocks, if you do choose to do your retightenings yourself, you're supposed to take a paid course for a Sisterlock retightening course to teach you how to properly maintain and retie your locks so that it meets the Sisterlock standard, and so that you can still consider and call your locks Sisterlocks down the road after you've been maintaining them yourself. With MicroLocks, maybe if you go to a loctician, they will do a consultation before, or maybe they will not. Again, with MicroLocks, if you choose to have a friend or do it yourself, then there's no consultation needed. You can just start them whenever you're ready. With Sisterlocks, there's more of a process. You most definitely have to schedule a time with the Sisterlock technician and consultant to go in so that they can talk to you, give you a consultation, answer any questions that you may have, talk to you about the entire process. And then also, before you leave that consultation, they will install a couple of test locks. And depending on how long they tell you to go with these test locks in your head, it could be a matter of days or weeks before they tell you to come back for your actual appointment. And then when you come back for your actual appointment, they will do the full installation. And I believe that you leave that day with a Sisterlock starter kit that has different things in it, like your Sisterlock shampoo and a couple of other items. And you also get your first retie for free. Well, it's not free, but it's included in your price that you pay for your Sisterlock. So it's like a Sisterlock starter kit bundle that you get. So at the end of the day, who wins this war? Is it better to have MicroLocks or is it better to have Sisterlocks? Honestly, at the end of the day, it is 100% up to you, your lifestyle, and what you're feeling. Do you want to pay more? Do you want the freedom? Do you want to be part of a kind of community and club? At the end of the day, there are very big differences between MicroLocks and Sisterlock. But when you come down to it, they look very similar. Not all the time, but there are a lot of times that mature Sisterlocks look very similar to mature MicroLocks, and that you can't even tell the difference. Maybe a Sisterloctician would be able to tell a difference, or a trainee might be able to tell a difference. Or if someone's up on your scalp right now, or and they see a braid pattern, then they will be able to tell a difference. But for the most part, people are not going to be able to tell the difference between Sisterlocks and your MicroLocks, especially once they're mature. So at the end of the day, you need to decide for yourself what best fits you, what best fits your pocketbook, what best fits your lifestyle and your beliefs and values, and what part of which community you want to be in. Because honestly, it's all part of the same community, and there's no reason to divide and say, this one's better than that one, this one's more elite than that one. I have heard some people talk about the real locks and then the step locks or step sister locks or whatever between Sisterlocks and MicroLocks, or comparing them and saying that one is like the designer bag and the other one is like the knockoff bag. But at the end of the day, most people don't know the difference between the knockoff bag and the designer bag unless they are specialized in that thing. From a distance, they can't tell. When they're up close, unless they know the specificities of that designer bag, they're not going to know whether you paid $5,000 for that bag or whether you paid $50 for that bag. So really, there is no better. There is just what's better for you. And you have to make that decision. Drop down in the comments below. Let me know what you have. Do you have MicroLocks? Do you have Sisterlocks? If you have MicroLocks, what method did you use to start? Do you go to a loctician, or do you DIY and do it yourself, or have a friend or a family member that helps you do your reties? I'd be interested to know. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of the video. I hope that wherever you are and whatever time of day it is that you're watching, that you have positive vibes around you. Remember to always be kind to people and go out and give words of affirmation to others. Bye.